The Monk's Tale. In tragic manner I will now lament the griefs of those who stood in high degree, and fell at last with no expedient to bring them out of their adversity. For sure it is, if fortune wills to flee, no man may stay her course, or keep his hold. Let no one trust a blind prosperity. Be warned by these examples, true and old. Lucifer. With Lucifer, although an angel he, and not a man, I propose to begin. For notwithstanding angels cannot be the sport of fortune, yet he fell through sin down into hell, and he is yet therein. O Lucifer, brightest of angels all, now thou art Satan, and canst never win. Out of thy miseries how great thy fall. Adam. Consider Adam, made by God's own finger, and not begotten of man's unclean seed. He that in Eden was allowed to linger, now called Damascus, and had power at need over all paradise, save that decreed and single tree prohibited. Then he, none ever on earth stood higher, till his deed drove him to labor, hell, and misery. Samson. Long ere his birth by annunciation, Samson was heralded by an angel bright, who marked him out for God in consecration, and stood forth nobly while he had his sight. There never was another of such might, or hardihood of mind for might to borrow, and yet he let his secret come to light. He told his wife, and killed himself for sorrow. Samson, this noble warrior of Zion, having no weapon by him for the fray, but his bare hands, yet slew and tore a lion, while walking to his wedding on the way. His treacherous wife so pleased him with her play, she coaxed his secrets forth with double face. She then betrayed them to his foes that lay in wait, and took another in his place. And Samson took in his avenging ire, and lashed 300 foxes in a band, tying their tails, set the tails on fire. To every tail he bound a fiery brand, and burnt up every cornfield in the land, and every vine and olive in a mass of flame, and slew 1,000 with his hand, no weapon but the jawbone of an ass. And having slain them, was so parched with thirst, he was near lost, yet prayed the Lord on high to show that favor he had showed at first, and send his servant water lest he die. Then from that very jawbone which was dry, out of a molar tooth there sprang a well, and there he drank enough to satisfy his thirst. God sent his help, as judges tell. And then at Gaza on a certain night by force he rent apart the city gate, bore off the pieces on his back in spite of what the Philistines in fierce debate could do, and then he set them up in state high on a hill. O Samson, dear thy worth, hadst thou not blabbed thy secrets to thy mate, none ever could have matched thee upon earth. This Samson never drank of mead or wine, his head no razor ever touched or shear. This precept was enjoyed by the divine messenger angel. All his strength lay here, lodged in his locks, and fully 20 year he was a judge and ruler of Israel. Yet the day came to him for many a tear, and it was by a woman that he fell. It was his love, Delilah, even she, to her he owed, that all his power lay within his hair, and to the enemy she sold her lover sleeping as he lay upon her breast, and bade them cut away his locks, revealed his secret to those spies, and so they found him there, an easy prey, and bound him fast, and put out both his eyes. But yet before his hair was clipped and shaved, there was no thong or lashing that could bind his arm. And now they took him and encaved him in a prison, set him there to grind a quern. O Samson, strongest of mankind, O sometime judge in glory and in power, now mayest thou weep, although thine eyes are blind. Fled is thy joy, and come thy bitter hour. Perished this captive wretch, as I shall say, his foes prepared a feast, and for their jeers made him their fool, and bade him to display, amidst a temple thronged in crowded tears, his strength. And yet he set them by the ears, he grasped 2 pillars, shook and made them fall, and the whole temple, shaken from its piers, crashed down and slew him and his foremen all. That is to say, not magistrates alone, but some 3,000 others also slain. In the huge ruin of their temple of stone, of Samson I will say no more, but gain a warning from his story, old and plain. Men should keep counsel, and not tell their wives secrets that it concerns them to retain, touching the safety of their limbs and lives. Hercules. For Hercules, victor of sovereign power, his labors sing his praise and lasting fame. Who in his time was human strength in flower, he slew a lion and skinned the same. He robbed the centaurs of their boasted name, he slew the harpies, cruel birds, and fell. He robbed the golden apples, overcame their dragon guard, drove Cerberus from hell, and slew Basarius the tyrannical, and made his horses eat him, flesh and bone. He brought about the fiery serpent's fall, made one of Achelous' horns his own, killed the fierce Caucasus in his cave of stone, and left Antaeus the gigantic dead. He met the grisly boar and laid it prone, and last he shouldered heaven overhead. Was never hero since the world began that slew so many monsters as did he. Throughout the world his reputation ran, and with his strength and magnanimity all kingdoms of the earth he went to see. None said him nay, none equaled him in worth. But the Chaldean prophet named Trophy says he set pillars up to bound the earth. He had a lover, this redoubted man. Her name was Denaria. Fresh as May, and as the learned tell us, she began to fashion him a shirt, to make him gay. O fatal shirt! Oh, alas, alas, I say, poison was subtly woven in its mesh. Ere he had worn it scarcely half a day, from every bone there fell away his flesh. But some authorities would thus excuse her, saying that Nessus made the shirt, not she. Let that be as it may, I won't accuse her. He wore it anyway, and certainly blackness began to rot his flesh, and he raked burning coals upon himself and died. Having perished, there was no remedy, and scorning death by poison out of pride. Thus fell the famous mighty Hercules, who then may trust the dice at fortune's throw, who in this thronging world delights to seize on the unwary and lay him low. Wise is the man that well has learnt to know himself. Beware, when fortune would elect to trick a man, she plots his overthrow by such means as he would least expect. Nebuchadnezzar. The mighty throne, the precious stores of treasure, the glorious scepter, and the diadem that once belonged to King Nebuchadnezzar. Tongue cannot tell, hard to describe one gem among them. Twice he took Jerusalem, and from the temple bore the vessels plighted to God, and to his realm he carried them, to Babylon, where he gloried and delighted. The fairest children of the royal line of Israel he gelded, and this done made each of them a thrall, and let them pine in servitude. Daniel of these was one, wisest among them all, or under sun. He could expound the dreams whose visitations troubled the king. Chaldean there was none that could interpret their significance. This proud king made an image out of gold. Its height was 60 cubits, and its frame 7 in breadth. He ordered young and old to bow before this idol and to claim its glory in a furnace of red flame. Any that disobeyed him should be flung, but Daniel would not stoop to such a shame, nor would his 2 companions. They were young. This King of Kings, so mighty and elate, supposed that God, who sits in majesty, could never rob him of his kingly state, yet he was cast from it, and suddenly Forth in the rain, thinking himself to be an animal, he went, and fed without on hay as oxen do, and there dwelt he among the beasts till time had come about. And like an eagle's feathers grew his hair, his nails were like the talons of a bird, till God released him from his madness there. For certain years the king's heart was stirred. In thanks to God with many a tearful word, he swore to sin no more, until the hour of death, when at last he was interred, he recognized God's mercy and his power.